All right, great. So welcome. Well, I have Richard Blank, the CEO of Costa Rica call center, and we were talking before the show, and it was quite interesting. I mean, he has a really cool Art Deco building and an amazing. I'm sad to hear that you sold uh, your your limo, but it was not a limo. It was like a piece of artwork. It was like a classic. And but welcome to the show, Richard.
Dean, so happy to be here. And I also want to put out a special thanks for Virginia for confirming this today and went above and beyond. So you have an excellent team working with you.
Oh, good. Yeah, she's amazing. She's from Uruguay, and which is kind of cool. We were just talking about different cultures, and yeah, she's amazing. So thank you for that. She'll love hearing that because she gets this and and sends it on to our editors, and so thank you for recognizing her.
Of
So
course.
Richard, to kick this off, like just to give the audience some context, like we have a lot of entrepreneurs and CEOs and people in data and AI, listening to the show, but could you just give a background on yourself and your company for some context?
Of course. I am the CEO of Costa Rica's call center. We're a nearshore dedicated bilingual call center located in Central America, Costa Rica. We focus on sales, appointment setting, lead generation, customer support, back office support, and non-voice support. And come February 6th, I'll be celebrating my 18th year in business.
Wow,
So
congratulations.
there is some fidelity there. I must love a couple things about it to keep doing it.
Excellent, excellent. And so could maybe we're talking about AI and data and how that's maybe affecting your business, and maybe you could share, how is AI affecting the call center business?
I can see it. And I know that when they get better with AI, there'll be chances to gather information in a more effective way. But here's the kicker. AI can do the majority of the work in any sort of vertical and medium. But the last 10% needs to be the real, true, sincere empathy between two human beings. If you're speaking to a doctor, a law firm, customer support to save that account, how many times, Dean, have you pressed zero? How many times has the IVR not recognized what you said, which airport it was? It's annoying. And then the call could get
So
dropped. And
frustrating.
as much as you think it's efficient, guess what? You haven't gotten there yet. You
Yep.
will, but not yet. And so let them gather the basics, pass it on to the advanced stage, and will it remove the front line? It may. But if you have those advanced soft skills, you shouldn't worry about your job. There'll always be somewhere for you and you should be marketable. I know it's going to change the industry, and I have to really put myself in the shoes of the consumer. If it's more efficient, if you can save money, if you have more options, if there's no cursing or frustration and you can get a first call resolution, then by all means do it. But don't tell me that the best relationships are made. It's between individuals, the ups and the downs, and showing character when times are tough. And so, if you're looking to retain somebody or get a referral or a reference, I think most people are going to give that when you've earned it. If somebody finds the best deal in town for a cheesesteak, yo, Dean, I'm going to tell you. But if it's recommending somebody to work with, like a mechanic, an attorney, a doctor, or just anybody that's a professional. It's really that experience you had with them when you got to see the true person is why you would be recommending them. And so, but I tell you, it will definitely change this industry. And I'm hoping for the better because unfortunately, a lot of call centers have a bad rap. People get frustrated with the agents. There's turnover. Look what Hollywood has done. Look what they make us look like. But
Yeah.
maybe I can shatter some misconceptions in regards to our image.
So yeah, I think you hit on a really important point. Like a big part of it is the human and emotional and relating to other people. And even though the AIs are working to get there, there's more hype than reality there.
Right.
And customer service is so important. It like you're either frustrated with the brand, can't stand the brand, or you love the brand. And it happens like when you need to call in to get help. And there's I have a dog, and I use the farmer's dog. They
Mhm.
have the most effective customer service call center I've ever experienced. They're knowledgeable. You can tell they're kind people just by their tone of voice and how they talk to you. And then they help you. Like all of a sudden, once you get through, your problems get solved. And nothing's more frustrated than to get bounced around and still not solve a problem. Um, but I could imagine, like, I don't know how they do that to have such excellent service, but like, how do you do it? Like, how do you ensure you hire the right people, keep them trained, motivated, happy? I mean, do you have any secret sauce around that?
We could discuss so many different areas, but the fact that they might have access to more of your account gives them a level playing field. If somebody doesn't have any information, you can't start yelling at them. They're not the manager, they didn't do it.
Yep.
And when people start apologizing for something that they didn't do, that can be frustrating as well. So no, my friend, I think there's specific diplomatic vocabulary that people can do to readjust tones, or not to deflect, but to accept the fact that we have a situation and we can calm down about it. How about this? Profanity. If somebody literally curses at me, you get a warning. Second time, I'm killing the call. But if it's like a cartoon where steam's coming out of their ears, they're just saying F this, and I'm so frustrated, I'll let you curse. And then I'll say, Dina, you done? You're like, oh man, I'm sorry, Richard. And I'll give you some Philly guilt. I go, you sure you don't want to curse anymore?
Yeah, I can tell when you were talking about like that. There's some Philly in you, and
No, but you're good, my man. After something like that, you got it out. Maybe I got a couple points there, what you're frustrated about. We reset and we move forward closer and together. And so, yeah, ask about special sauces. It's the moment. Come on. Sometimes you're speaking to someone in their best or worst day of their life. So
yeah,
you need to put yourself in their shoes and use their names and ask clarification questions if things make sense, Dean, or sounds good, right, Dean? Or how about this? May we move forward, Dean, so you can have a checkpoint?
yeah.
Because when you do not get a first call resolution, it's because you left a door open. And so I'd rather have you have a smooth 3 minutes than a choppy six where you just don't know where there could be confusion, send me information, call me later, compared to the actual commitment. And so being more in the now, since we remove three of our senses over the phone, the taste, touch, and smell, your hearing should be expanded. And you should use more imagination, colorful language. There's metaphysics there. It's okay to do image streaming. And so these are ways in 30-second segments just to captivate the audience, just so it's a refresh. You can get maybe a positive reinforcement from that if people even go, mm-hmm, or ask you a second or third question showing anchoring and interest levels. What a dance. What a beautiful art of speech. And if people concentrate on it more compared to omni-channel non-voice, which is text, emails, and things like that, and chat, it could be misinterpreted, it could be latent. Well, when you and I literally communicate, that's where you make the core connection. And so I can't stress it enough. And those that really invest in speaking well, these are the skills you can use outside of the office to save a marriage and just have a beautiful life. And so there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with this incredible gift that we were given.
Yeah, and it's not easy to master some of these skills you're talking about of empathy and inflection and asking the right questions and reading the body language and the subtle hints that you get. There's an interesting thing. I belong to this Vistage, which is like mid-market CEOs, and it like you have speakers every month. And we once did this exercise where we had to read a poem, but so we read the words of the poem, but we had to communicate to the other person not the poem, but we read the words, but through our body language and our tone and how we were talking, we had to communicate something different. And you can do it. It was like eye-opening that it's not about your words, it's about your inflection and how you talk and your body language. And so yeah, it's pretty interesting. Sounds like you're an expert in that area. And but I gotta imagine it's like how do you teach it to people? Like that's it. I mean, that's a real skill.
Well, I appreciate the question. Let's all slow down and calm down for a second. If you repeat something 10,000 times, you should become a master at it. And so all
Yes.
the QA calls I listened to and scripts I've written and tried and tested, but it is manipulation. You can manipulate your tone, your rate of speech, and your pitch, your speaking level. But if you get caught, you don't seem authentic. And who wants to do that? Telling the truth, you can tell the same story 10,000 times. And so when you say, Richard, how do you learn empathy? My man, if you're calling me today and you've been a client for this company for 12 years and you might have a problem with your cell phone, first, I'm going to say thank you so much for being a client for 12 years. You're the greatest. I'm going to immediately solve this for you.
Yeah.
Really. And so um, there's nothing wrong with paying it forward. There is electromagnetic energy people do in so many different ways, from smiles to haptics, touch, phone calls, thoughts. And I don't know, you told me about this experience that you had, and I'm so happy to hear it, where it was the best customer service ever. You're talking about it on a podcast. You're wondering why they created magic. No, my friend, we all have this. It's just a matter of your engagement on how much you really care about the
Yeah.
company you're working with and your job and your time. And it's those that belittle the position, saying it's transitory or it's something where it's less than a car salesman to be a telemarketer, to be a customer support agent. These are the core components of a company for prospecting and bringing in new business, for upselling, for retaining a
Absolutely.
client. And you mentioned about skill set, it's common sense. All you got to do is just have a normal conversation with somebody. People sound different over the phone than they do in person. And you tell me to read body language. Well, that could be once again misconstrued. There's sometimes we call it congruence, where audio matches the visual. Well, how about this? Like in Star Wars, where they put the blast shield down, the guy was supposed to hit the ball with the lightsaber. Imagine doing this blind. You make 160 to 200 phone calls a day to people sight unseen. And so imagine that sort of structured, controlled environment. You have to be able to get some tell signs from that and increase your timing in that, like a bat flying through radar sound. And we listen for noises in the background like dogs. You have a dog in the background, Dean. I'm going to first tell you I love dogs. It's called the Me Too technique. But then it's just moving forward and trying to sell you insurance. I'm going to go, no, no. What's the name of your dog? What breed is it? And my favorite question, how old is your puppy? You know, it's like 14 years old. And
Yeah.
so it's amazing what you can do by anchoring with something that shows a true person while you put your script away. You're not
Yeah.
selling anything anymore, and you're both showing that you love dogs. And now you know Champ's name, and it's a German Shepherd, and 14, and it's your baby boy. And so all of a sudden, it's like when you play games with somebody. I collect pinball machines. And so I have a
Hmm.
happy medium for people. And so when people are so serious at work or they make the phone calls, when you get them laughing and having fun on pinball or the air hockey table, you see a different side of people.
Oh yeah.
And they become more vulnerable because the mask comes down and they don't feel like they're comparing you to all the people that might have burned them or just wasted their time in the past. And so, um, what a wonderful thing to do, to make 100 new friends a day if you're capable.
Yeah. It's not easy. And like, how do you hire for that? Like, how do you find the person that has the, that you can hire someone that has those capabilities or those ingredients you look for? And then also, if you can share, like, how do you train them? It sounds like you're very deep in psychology and communications. And yeah, what can you share about that?
We always have to be realistic. I can't put certain expectations on somebody after doing this for 25 years. And so I like play. I like things that are animated. So, and you asked some extremely intelligent and fun questions, and I thank you for this. Let's look at the two people you can have. I can bring in the mercenary, the hotshot, kids that have been in this for 10 years already. He's done the rounds from collections to customer support. He's done all the big call centers, the Amazons, the HP, Intels, and Sykes, and Convergys, and Teleperformance. Ooh, the big football seniors, right? But here's the thing. He might be a jumper, a cancer. He might have terrible habits. Does he produce? Yeah, but what's the cost?
Hmm.
And there's no loyalty to a flag, especially when you look at a resume showing movement. And so I don't want to be pressured into somebody like that,
Hmm.
that I don't need to size up. I'd rather have the freshman, Mm-hmm. It's never worked at a center before. But Richard, hold on, Dean. If you're bilingual, and we spoke about this prior to the podcast, when you are bilingual or speak multiple languages, it bears the mark of higher education. You see
Yeah.
structure and discipline, cognitive skills. You're coming in strong, and I can mold you like a squire to a knight. What skills can I teach you? What, to use a CRM? Adjust a Plantronic headset for noise canceling? Teach you how to sit there for 8 hours a day making phone calls? You got to build up to that. No, we talk about soft skills. We talk about rhetoric. Since English is your second language, Dean, I recommend the thesaurus so you can expand your vocabulary so you just don't use words like help on the phone. Depending on the stage of the conversation and relationship, you start with assisting someone, eventually guiding them and lending a hand to get the ball in the end zone. Never say excuse me or I'm sorry. It's for my clarification. It's a sacrificed pawn, but what you're doing is falling on a sword. Because once you start saying I'm sorry, excuse me, it really messes up the tone, and then there's rabbit holes there. We prefer military alphabet. Come on, man, that's an insurance policy. Make sure that your name and email is spelled correctly, and there's a lot of the chance someone served in the military. So instead of the call ending, it's like an encore. You get 2 or 3 more minutes of some good stuff. And my number one recommendation, my good friend, is what I did in the beginning of your podcast. I sincerely gave a positive escalation to your personal assistant, Virginia, because she was rocking and rolling this morning, making sure everything was perfect. And
Yeah.
when you do something like that for somebody, it's going to separate me from the 999 other people that have been on your podcast and have contacted you for business. And so when it comes down to choosing somebody to work with, the contract, a recommendation, you put everything else aside, the prices and stuff, and you say, prior to any sort of money exchange or contract, look what he said about Virginia. Look at the sort of due diligence we did about each other, and we're really interested in one another. And I think that's the sort of individual that I could work with long term, because when the going gets tough, I know Richie's not going to have any surprises. He's going to give you a phone call and let you know what's happening, and then have a game plan. And that's
Nice.
maturity and impulse control. And it was one of the toughest things I had to learn. But these were some of the best lessons I had, is the relationships I had with my clients when I had to make that call, Dean. I tell you what, AI can't make that call, Dean. How can
Yeah.
AI break news? Unless they're telling you your lights are shut off, or your credit, your bank's got nothing in it, zero balance. You don't want to hear that from AI. And you're not
No.
going to hear that other phone call as well when there's bad news or good news about a company. And so, um, wow, what interesting lessons to learn. But if you do it the raw way, and you get people to stand up during class, hold the script in the left, use illustrators to the right, pause before names and numbers or certain trigger words that are in sentences to catch their attention still. And, I love the personal pronoun, the your and the are, because it's the cousin of the name drop. Because I can't see ding every 2 minutes, but that I could say your podcast and are the, yeah, these are just, it's like the with the sheep and the sheepdog. They don't walk in a straight line like the movie Babe. It's a zig and a zag. There's a loosey goosey. And as
Yeah.
long as you can kind of bring people in through pronouns and spikes and pauses and confirmations, you buy 30 seconds. And so a 10-minute phone call is 20, 30-second checkpoints. That's how you
Okay.
play this game. And
Yeah.
if you can
How did you
master
learn
it, then
all
you
this?
can make a million.
Yeah. How did you learn all these things?
After doing this for 25 years. Oh, and by the way, and watching some good television back in the 80s of the, Templeton Peck from the A Team and Remington Steele. I had to learn some rhetoric from somewhere. And then went real old school to Basil Rathbone back in the 30s and 40s. No, you study speech.
Yeah, but you have some skill here. Like you have some like psychological skill. Like you, I can't. I mean, maybe it's true, but you couldn't have learned it just all by trial and error. You had to have some. You got to study some of this, or did you? Like, how did you
There's
learn to do all?
guitarists that have never taken a lesson, and there are certain actors that just pluck off the street, or people that can just sing. I've never
Was
had
it natural
classical
to you?
training in sales. I mean, I've been in selling environments where supervisors come in teaching you the KISS technique and other things and ABC with Blake and Glengarry and, all that good stuff. But you know what's really fun? When I first came down here in August of 2000, I was at my friend's center. How did I even get here? I was in between jobs. In fact, I was sending out my resume via fax machine. Shows you how old it was. Trying to get a job down in Tempe so I can be
Don't tell me
miserable.
you were doing the rotary phone for outbound.
It was either analog or monologue if I'm doing this broadcast faxing. Yeah. Are you serious? Oh my God. And so my cousin Joe says, listen, a fraternity brother of ours has a call center in Costa Rica. Why don't you come down for 2 months and teach English? Well, I walked off that plane. I walked in the center and I saw hundreds of bilingual young ticos making phone calls. And I see what your point. I saw the technology side of it and I would go, man, that looks like a lot. But then I saw the juice, how people converse. And I go, wait a second, I can do this. It's almost like wiffle ball. I go, wait a second, they're doing wiffle ball speech. And I'm a native speaker. So I think I have a home court advantage. And so when I was there, besides teaching English, then all of a sudden I started teaching calls because they were teaching me their rebuttals and how to speak with people. They were asking me certain vocabulary and how to pronounce certain words. And we learned to write things out phonetically because that's a time people would get stumped. Why stump it? Who cares? Write it out on your piece of paper how it sounds. Because if you're going to try to do this every time, it's the roadblock. And so is it cheating? No, it's just for call flow. That's all we were trying to manipulate so people wouldn't lose their rhythm. And so um, you start reading articles on non-visual speech and you start studying phonetics, and then you understand the reactions of people with certain word choices. Oh, and then when you start speaking to clients and you see how aggressive or passive they are and how you don't get the warm fuzzies, I'd rather have assertiveness. And then when they start having supervisors or other people trying to influence this extremely peaceful and docile society, and there are a way that they do it in Chicago. We don't do it that way. And so it was very interesting to learn the sort of crisscrossing of the cultures and how it blends and how it could work and being selective of the campaigns. And
Yeah, do you are there any like interesting books that you've read or audio books or things that can build up like some of these skills you're talking about? I mean, there's soft skills, but there's also skills and anything you can recommend?
I relate to speakers. And so the self-help books is not really my thing. As I was mentioning before, you had this actor, Dirk Benedict in the 80s, who was Starbuck from the original Battlestar Galactica and The Face Man. And as much as I enjoyed watching Mr. T throwing people through windows and Hannibal having a plan and Murdoch being crazy, I always enjoyed that 5 minutes of the show where this suit wearing slick, clever individual would be able to get a car, an airplane, or get themselves into somewhere. And very interesting. Uh, People gravitate towards those that can make their point. And unless and I love certain slangs, and in Costa Rica we call them dichos, and sometimes I don't get certain jokes, people have to translate it for me. And that's fine. And it can be used in certain areas, and I can speak my Philly and say, yo, them Johns is fresh and stuff like that. But there's other times where people don't get it. And so I don't want to do Queen's English and have an SAT word where I'm sounding smart and it's great, but no one gets it. But I think you can choose a word that is choice, that can make its point. And as I mentioned, lending a hand as an example, if you can give the double score where it's a visual, it's really assisting them. And there's nothing wrong with speaking in a certain way louder, but a little slower so they can grasp it. Pausing is a technique just to allow you to ask a question or just engage a reaction, or what do you do? It's just my thing is studying if there's crosstalk, interruption, then that means that I need to slow down a bit and allowing you to make your point. But I tell you what, I think this is the best bit of advice that I can give to you, because I'll give you 1,000 techniques, but let me tell you the psychology of the warrior, not the shield and the sword. I got to give you what gets me on this battlefield. It's a
Let's hear it.
romantic death. jumping a cloud. I can give you the greatest 30 seconds ever. And if I'm completely disqualified, they hang up on me or whatever, I will at least do a company name spike. AI data driven leadership podcast. How are you today? You know? And then at least I'll say better than the Virginia, whoever else answers your phone. And so at least I'm using anonymity to my advantage. It's a first impression. I'm not doing it the whole call, that's shady. Then you're probably going to say, who's this? Compared to, is this a sales call? Why are you calling? Take me off your list. So now to say it's Richard Blank. And if you say, you know, good morning, this is Dean, I'll go, hey, Dean, it's Richard Blank. And then it's the double dip. It's to see if you ask who Richard Blank is. And then I'll mention the CEO of Costa Rica's call center. And then you play your odds. It goes from half court to 3-point to foul line percentages by doing the name spike to get you out of your zone because you're black and blue from all the people trying to get in touch with you, Dean, calling your office. So then you say, hey, this kid's interesting. He sounds like a mystery shopper, Dean's best friend. He's been here before. And then the way I say my name, once again, is non-threatening. And, you know, if you ask, what is your name? I use a buffer boomerang technique. I go, Dean, that's an excellent question. My name is Richard Blank. Hey, Richard Blank, what's ABC? Dean, that's a great question. ABC is 1, 2, 3. I'll take your negative. I'll say, that's a great question. Repeat the question and send it back positive. It's a half moon. It's a buffer boomerang. These are techniques to readjust tones with people.
And do you like when you're, I mean, I know call center is a lot not visual, but like, do you have points of view on there's this whole technique of mirroring? I'm sure you probably heard of it. Do you have any points of view around mirroring?
Of course. I mean, are you talking about watching yourself in a mirror or seeing somebody in mirror imaging their body
Yeah,
language?
so it's like, I don't know, I think the CIA or somebody came up with it where you can create trust and rapport where you're observing the behavior, the tone, the mannerism. And so you know, if you're sitting up straight, I will sit up straight. If you're leaning over, I will lean over, and it subconsciously creates you know, the ability to connect and communicate clear, creating trust, you know. So
You're
uh
bringing up an excellent point when you're talking about visual micro expression reading, which is fine. But then, my wise friend, what happens if I remove the sight?
yeah,
How
that's hard.
can you do any sort of micro expression reading non-visual? It's funny that you bring that up. I actually have a prop for that. You want to see a prop?
Yeah. Micro expression
Can you
reading,
read it?
pitch rate. Yep. I can
That's the
read it.
phonetic micro expression reading. And by the way, I did plug my buffer boomerang earlier. There's the buffer boomerang technique. Can you see
So
that?
you're ready for the visuals.
Oh man, I got to pass this class. You're on a very sophisticated show. I got to bring props. I'm not that smart. Anyway, phonetic micro expression reading, I'm telling you that really what you're studying is how fast they're going and how loud they are. And usually people speak in quadrant 1. If you want to just use me as a case study for the past 20 minutes, I'm a quadrant 1 because I speak at an 8 and I'm as loud as an 8. Now, besides my semantics and my tone, which in my mind should be empathetic and confident, that's the best mixture of a tone on you. Don't mirror image a negative tone. That's their problem. That should be your
Yeah.
consistent variable. The inconsistency with that consistent variable is the spike or the dip of the speed or the speaking level. Why is that ingenious? Because yeah, it could be manipulated, but it could be done in any language, any language. We're not even looking at semantics. You're looking at a tone of voice, a tone which represents emotion. And I'm
Yeah.
paying attention to speed and sound, and I do it every 30 seconds subconsciously. After 3 weeks, it becomes habit. It's not going to hold you back from work, but damn it, you can definitely carry that with you when you're on the phone speaking with people, or even face to face, which will only enhance and make your conversation a little more lucid. And so, but here's the thing, and
So
you're
you
a
just
smart
sped
guy.
up right there. Now, why did you just speed up? Because you're excited about this?
Oh, absolutely. And I got
Or you
another point to go over.
or
Oh,
you
yeah. You got me
purposely
on one
sped
of my
up?
favorite topics.
You naturally purposely sped up, or what? What happened there?
What happened on that one is because, oh, this is very interesting. Think of the tip of a pyramid. A lot of the times, the only way that I can tap into that 1% really, Richard, is when I get super excited. I'm with a good friend. And so when you see me like revving up, you're like, wait a second, there could be something that comes out of left field from this guy. And so, yeah, it's my own body reacting positively, kind of like a wagging tail of a dog. So,
Yeah, you're passionate about this.
hey, Dean, you get the best out of people. What do you
Yeah,
want me to say? But
yeah.
yeah, the fourth part of this thing, it's not the tone, the rate of the pitch, it's the duration, because the beauty of phonetics is you need silence to have the sound. So you should really study the time in between those three: tone, rate, and pitch. And even if you want to throw the words in there, fine, throw it all in there. But that separation, that pausing, that black key with all the whites on the piano is so different. Why? Watch the cop shows. The robbers in there yelling back at the cops, cursing, yelling, interrupting. By the third or fourth question, they show the evidence. What happens? That's that long answer speaking, and all of a sudden they start crying and they're asking for deals. And so that, to me, if you want to talk about tell signs, you leaning over and people doing haptics and self or object adapters, people like to scratch or twist or click. Okay. But the purest form is the phonetic. And so, as I
Gotcha.
say, you study that answering speed because you can't manipulate that. You're lucky if you get 3 out of 10. And
So
that, I
like,
think, my friend, will be your confirmation if people are being facetious with you.
yeah, so what's the level one course of phonetics? So if someone speeds up, slows down, that the pitch, like what are you reading? Like what is that telling you?
If you've known me for 10 years, then you know Richie's on a roll. But if you just met me, you have no idea what's going on. That's why I say every 30 seconds, if there's a spike or a dip, and you brought up a great question, that's when we ask the clarification question. I'm speeding up, say, hey, Richie, you like this, don't you? Of course I do. Or, hey,
Yeah,
Richie, you like this? No, no, man, I'm speeding up because you're frustrating me. What the hell's going
yeah,
on, Dean? And
yeah.
so, a lot of the times when and you've noticed it, yes, once I get my thing out, you go, sounds good, right, Richard? Give it open ended. So at least you see on my end. I could say yes or no and maybe even add information to it. That's why instead of asking someone if they like ice cream, what kind of ice cream you like? So
Yeah,
at
so
least you know, and then you get extras too. So any sort of open ended that you can ask people are very beneficial. What did you like about that, Richard? I didn't like anything. Okay. What'd you like about that, Richard? Well, I loved everything. Either way, you win. So it's a great way, as you did. You saw it. If I got louder or faster, slower. Good boy, Dean. And you ask about 10 of those on a 10-minute phone call. If it's a really good call, you're engaged and you're confirming. And so that's why you'd be great on the phone on that.
yeah, so okay, so you're using tone, pitch, and to engage with them. Like maybe you'll slow down when you ask a very important question, and maybe they'll give an answer, and you'll get a little higher in pitch because you're excited and relating to that question. And is that kind of how it flows, or
It does, but I
yeah,
also don't really pay too much attention to the tone. The only time is if they're positive. They're negative Nancy or Debbie Downer. My goal with that buffer boomerang was once again to readjust the tone. That's why you could be -2. And I'm trying to get you to a +2 when I answer your question and send it back to you. So it's a lot of molding and adjusting, but really, I'm really focusing on, as you say, that speed and that sound, and especially that answering speed. And so that will, you don't maybe need to ask it for 4 or 5 questions. Sometimes it's just like leapfrog. It's just sometimes you're grooving. It's a good song. You
yeah,
both got rhythm to it. And then
yeah.
there's one you don't know how to dance to. So you got to reset and go again. And so, very interesting you say that. Yes, some calls have long runs, and some you need to readjust that gear a little bit. And that's why if you control it in every 30 seconds, there's no rabbit holes. It's very preventative. And you would be surprised how you're in control when the client's believing that they're in control. Really, it's think about this. You could have the largest ship and cruise liner in the world, but it just takes that little rudder to move it. Correct, Amundo? And
Yeah,
so I just want to be that rudder. You can do the rest. And let's just
yeah.
make sure that we're able to groove together.
You know, all these things we're talking about aren't they're related, they are related to AI and data because all of this is patterns and recognition and adjustments. And So what's kind of interesting is, do you think you can teach an AI these type of skills from your point of view?
The word teach, I don't know. I could share ideas. I could describe what I see, what I felt, what I've experienced. And if AI, through my own description in my own Philly way, got something out of it,
Yeah.
maybe that would work. I
Yeah, I
don't.
mean, AI learns by reinforcement learning, so you can you can have a lot of data, which would be voice conversations and also other how people are reacting to that, and you're teaching how to make adjustments, like because you're sharing a lot of both like um, complex things, but not sharing all the how do you get there. But I'm sure you know how to do that. And so my point is AI learns and it learns by reinforcement learning, which is like you're teaching it the pattern and you're saying, yes, that was correct, how you should do that, or no, that's not. So I kind of
I
think
think
it's
it's
good.
almost impossible. I think if you and I had this podcast, and let's just think in certain worlds, we could have this podcast 1 million different ways if we really wanted to today. We could
Yeah.
have started cursing, yelling, screaming compared to just silence and boring. And everything in the middle. So for them to try to capture what's taken humanity forever, and they think that they can do it in a sense, it's like your calculator. They can give you the answer, but they don't see you sweating. Hmm? Or your
Well,
stomach upset, or the
well,
clock on the wall because you only got 35 minutes left and you're halfway done.
yeah, well,
And the fact
there's
that you were
so
up late
much.
last night doing homework. And so say what you want, and I got you, my man. And that calculator can do that infinity times more faster than we can. But there is that bridge that will always have that missing piece. And the uncanny valley, the more that these machines are human like, there's going to get to a certain point where all of a sudden we don't want that anymore. It's if you compare like the C3PO and the R2D2, where people love R2D2.
Yeah,
C3PO speaks Queen's English and looks
yeah,
human like. And so people want to have that relationship but not be replaced. And I don't know. I tell you what, there's nothing more beautiful than a painting over a print. When you
yeah,
see, and in the future, if AI takes over more stuff, that man in the park that's playing his saxophone, or the individual that's doing the charcoal drawings of the family, will be seen as rock stars. Today, we
definitely.
just take it for granted. But in the future, when you see somebody with that sort of dedication and that talent, you will look at them as magicians,
Yeah, you
as so
appreciate.
special. And I hope they get the recognition that they deserve for still keeping this sort of tradition, Dean. And don't misconstrue my enthusiasm. I see old world and new world. And when I go downstairs and I got a packed lunchroom of 30 people, tables full of 6 to 8 people, and they're all on their phones
Yeah,
watching
it's bad.
Japanese anime or something,
I
and
don't
they're
like
all not conversing. And
I
I
don't like
turn
it.
to them and they say, "Okay, Grandpa." I'm like, "What are we, the Breakfast Club?" I go, "Come on,
Yeah,
what's the Breakfast Club?"
yeah,
Really? I don't even know that. Or Fast Time, so I can't even relate to them anymore. So it's or
yeah.
Ferris Bueller. Yeah, they don't even
Yeah,
know
I
those.
know all of these, but we're all from a different generations to have the analogies. But I'll
And
tell
that's
you,
what's beautiful.
AI is different, where it's not the calculator, where you could feed it a lot of, like in your case, feed it all the films you watched and give it some information and metadata as to what are you gleaning out of watching that video or watching that film or listening to that speech, and it can learn through to do all these things. But another important point you made, which I feel really passionate about, is
Mm.
yeah, we messed up a whole generation of kids with the iPhone and with social, where they didn't go out and get hurt. They didn't negotiate rules of some game they made up. They didn't know how to. We hurt them how to communicate and how to like figure things out and how to. I mean, there's still a lot of people taking risks, but getting hurt is part of taking risks, and you need to get hurt. And So there's this whole generation that we created that, has a lot of anxiety because of the way they grew up. And what I fear is with AI. So AI, they're, all these big tech, they're saying, oh yeah, we're at 87% on the physics test, and we're, which is beyond the smartest physicists or mathematicians or programmers in the world. But and then what I fear is that kids hear this and then they don't study math or physics or philosophy or whatever, creative writing or computer science, and that'll be a real shame because. So I'm really worried about the adverse effects or by everyone hearing, oh, AI is going to do that for you. Now I won't study. So I don't know. I was just reflecting on when you said, yeah, it came down and, you wanted to see people interacting in your cafe and they're not. And like, that's kind of sad. It's like,
But on the
I
flip
just hope
side,
AI
I'm the
doesn't do
boss, so I
that.
can tease them and I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
tell
No,
them what it
no,
was
I
like
know.
in
I know.
Waterville.
I know so I love technology. I run a tech company, but I also care about creativity and humanity and interactions and relationships, and so we have to
Yeah.
balance both. Um, it's becoming it's coming difficult because a lot of people just racing to the top without the unforeseen damages that you can do to get there. Anyway, you just made me think of those things. I just wanted to share that with you.
You're bringing up a very good point. When I first started, I didn't want to overextend. It wasn't glamorous. I was renting a turnkey station at a blended call center, like an internet cafe. It's a place I could start a business. It's like when people go to Starbucks and have meetings in business. Well, I needed to work, but I didn't have the money to rent space and buy computers and equipment and server room. And so there were places that for a couple $100 a month, you got a computer, keyboard, mouse, headset, um, area to have lunch and a bathroom. And I had this little small office that everyone could see me like a fishbowl. But it was the happiest of my life.
I love
Back
it. I
in,
love it. I love it. Entrepreneurial spirit, baby.
well, the first account I had was for one seat for 1 week. I wouldn't take that today, but back then I was running around the building
You were
screaming. But
happy.
I tell you, if anything of nothing, it's really fulfilling that commitment that you give to yourself years ago if you wanted to do something. And so if you need certain times of your life to either find direction or just to feel good about the stages that you're at, just get the first downs, the small wins. I
Yep.
mean, this thing took for freaking ever to get to this stage. And so if I tried to rush it, I wouldn't have had the savings to survive COVID or losing large clients or the outlay to build out this building in the center. You need to sometimes be very conservative with your money and not go too crazy. And so that's my
Love
only other suggestion for entrepreneurs. Just pace yourself accordingly.
love it. Love it. I totally subscribe to that. Like you have to appreciate every win, all the small wins, and just because it's hard and it takes and so it's the journey. You got to celebrate all the way. And like when we got our first office, it was a 2-room office. I felt like we were success. Our first year in business,
In
I
the
was
world.
still working as a consultant and my partner was working in his mom's bedroom. So like it wasn't until like year 2 we had our first door and 2 rooms, and I was like, man, we
Especially.
made it, like so exciting. And so
Yeah.
yeah, that's good advice that you shared. It's like celebrate the wins, celebrate the journey, and it's a long road, but like yeah, you've got to get that energy from all the steps along the way where something good happens.
It's cliche-ish though, and we're quoting, but this is what happens when you have to look at yourself in the mirror at the end of a day. Okay, you got to make sure that you can first look in your own eyes and realize you did the day with honorable intention, so you can put a head on a pillow and rest. Because a lot of people are very hard on themselves, or their
Yeah,
comparisons are to people that you might not know the true story of where they're at, how they got there. So just once again, it's as an adult, okay, and you have responsibilities of payroll. and expenses. You don't have time to do those sort of comparisons. You really have to focus on your own circle first. And then once that core and balance is there, then extend your branches and roots. And so it's selfish? You're damn right it's selfish. You have a business to run and a family to raise. I'm not saying cut yourself off from others, but you should understand your priorities and your time. And you
Yep,
should give yourself time to exercise and then
definitely.
decompress. I can't stress that enough. You need to find
100%.
ways to put that within your routine.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, I come from the generation of like, you know, just suck it up and work hard.
Yeah.
And you know what? It took me a long time to learn that like you need to recover. Like you need good sleep, you need to take vacation, you need to take time, you need to take time off. And actually
Yeah.
that in reflection on all that, like you become a higher performing person by doing it. Like just grinding out 12, 15 hours. If you put in a good eight at, you're gonna get 20 hours worth of work out of it. And but like our generation came from just suck it up. And but it's important. I think even pro athletes have learned this, that they're at high performing in sports in 30, 40 year olds, and it's because they're taking time to eat right, recover, sleep, have personal time, and whatever they enjoy, because it's so important to perform at a high level professionally.
That's right.
I couldn't agree more with you. And but yeah, entrepreneurship is takes a lot of grit, takes a lot of optimism, and so you can't hide that, and you'll have to grind it out. But don't forget about how to become a high performing person by by recovering. Yeah, no doubt. Well, this wasn't so much a tech show, but it was an interesting show. I mean, I actually enjoyed talking to you. You should probably write a book or something. I don't know if you have, but like I have a feeling you have a lot of insight around the things you shared, but like the things you shared too is like, how's that actionable? Like, oh, okay, I learned some things, but like, how can I learn more? Anyways, just my thoughts when I'm just from talking to you. And then maybe you don't want to train the AI in it, but you could train an AI. But maybe you don't want to do that and could contribute to where things are going. But yeah, we can't stop the train, where it's going, and hopefully there'll be a lot of thoughtful people uh, involved in this tech. There will be a lot of unthoughtful people, but hopefully we'll have a lot of thoughtful people doing it right. But yeah, thank you, Richard. I really appreciate your point of view on what you shared here. So, oh, and if the audience wants to reach out to you or learn more, or be ready to write your newsletter or book around your skill, yeah, how can they get in touch with you?
They should buy a plane ticket and come down and visit. This is beautiful here. We're north of Nick.
Costa Rica, it's beautiful. I'm coming. I'm coming in May.
I'm telling you, our location is key. North of Panama, south of Nicaragua. We're the only democratic society in Central America, no army. So they put their money into education, great labor pool, and we're known for ecotourism. There's some beautiful places for some hot springs, some best surfing in the world. And if you
Yeah.
enjoy zip lining, yeah, because no one wants to hire a telemarketer. Look what Hollywood has done to me. They've given us a black eye. So hopefully I was able to shed some light that not all CEOs of call centers are out there slinging stock or real estate on Rancho Rio. Um, but yes, and my calls page is Costa Rica's callcenter.com. But I can't thank you enough. Dean, I had a great time hanging out with you today. I know it wasn't tech heavy. That's why I have a CTO on the other side of this brick wall that handles it for me.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be valuable to my audience, and it was valuable to me. I enjoyed talking to you, and thank you, Richard.
Cool. Thank you so much, Dean.
All right.